Hi, everyone. Welcome to Plants 101. This project and session is hosted by Immune Impact Global East and Southeast Asia Regional Team. My name is Ivan Wei. I'm one of the co-DSGs here at the East and Southeast Asian Regional Team. Today, we'll be talking about plants, and specifically in relation to SDG 13, which is about climate action. SDG 13, as you probably know by now, is one of the 17 SDGs established by the United Nations in 2015. The official wording is to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Due to the current situation in the pandemic and the fact that most of us, or many of us, are living in cities, it's becoming difficult for us to actually reach out to nature and to be close to nature, which is why through this project, we hope to introduce you to nature as well as to bring it closer to you, even if you're just in your homes. Specifically, we'll be talking about houseplants. A few benefits of houseplants on the top of my head: they can improve the air quality, especially if you have more than one around the house. It can also bring us closer to nature. We'll be introducing some houseplants during this project that double as edible vegetables that can help spice up your kitchen. So without further ado, I'll be handing over to Yon. Yon, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm Yon Chu. I'm one of the DSGs for this region as well. And I'll be starting off the first portion of our project, which is essentially trying out gardening and growing some plants on our own. So I'll be going through the 6 plants that I grew, that I took care of during the time that we did the project.
As you can see, we have prepared a lot of things for you to take a look at during our presentation today. All right, here we go.
The first one is my mint plant. I named it Minty. So I was quite new to gardening, so I just decided that I'll buy some potted plants. So when I first got in February 20, it was 13 cm. And as you can see, by the end of April, became 22 cm. And the branches became quite long. But throughout, and by the time it was at the end of May, it is around 25 cm, and the longest branch is about 30 cm. So I actually failed in trying to take care of this plant throughout the time. Around April, it started dying, and I didn't really know why. But then I realized that I wasn't really watering it enough. So I decided that I'll actually start watering a full 300 milliliter bottle twice a day. So mint plants need a lot of water, and they also need moderate sunlight. If the sun is too bright, they will die. But if there's not enough sunlight, they'll also die. They also need a lot of water. So make sure that you're not underwatering it, because it'll wilt and the leaves will turn yellow. So I just plucked out all the dead leaves, and then after I started watering them more, after a week, the branches grew back, so new leaves grew back on the branches. So yeah, water a lot, and you can consume this with your tea or whatever you wish to do so in your kitchen. The next plant is my curry plant, which I named August. The growth is quite difficult to see, but when I first got it, it was 12 cm, and by the time of recording, it is 19 cm. They look quite similar in pictures. I wasn't sure how to get the angle, but yeah, they're very sturdy. They're not sensitive towards the environment. They're not sensitive towards the sunlight and the water. So I just spray them with my little squirting water thing. Twice a day, I'll squirt it like 10 times per time, so 20 times a day. And it's quite easy to take care of. It can withstand against like weather and everything. So definitely a recommendation for beginners to gardening. So the next 2 plants are the ones I actually grew myself. As you can see, I started at the end of April. I got some peat soil, and I filled 2 small pots to up 80% of the pot, and then I sprinkle the seeds evenly, and I sprinkle some soil on top of it. And then I just sprinkle them with water twice a day, just enough to make the soil wet. And by the first week, the leaves start coming out of the soil. And as for a tomato plant, by the end of May, it is about 5 cm. I Googled that, I researched that. It takes about 50 to 70 days to grow tomatoes, depending on what type of tomato it is. So patience is key for this plant. And I'll be moving this plant to a bigger pot so the tomatoes will have room to grow ASAP. As for my rosemary plant, they're very small. They're just about 2 cm. But I plan to move them to a bigger pot when they're bigger. Yeah. The next plant is my snake plant, which I named Willow. When I first got it, it was around 11 cm, and as of April 1st, it was 14 cm. It doesn't really grow much, so I just decided that I'll just not measure it, because it's an indoor plant that I keep in my room because it actually purifies my air. And this is very low maintenance plant. You just need to water. I just water them once every 10 days. Yeah, so they can be kept indoors and they don't need that much water. So this is also recommended for beginners to gardening. This another plant that I took care of was my cacti. I named it Evermore, and there was no growth for this plant, which was expected. But how do I take care of it? I just water it once every 2 weeks. So how I water it is that I get this little ice cream container lid. So I like Haagen-Dazs or Ben & Jerry's, those type of lids. I just put it below my plant. And whenever I want to water it, I just take it and then I will go fill it like halfway with water. And then I'll just place my plant on top of it, and that'll do. So the thing is, I don't want my water to touch the plant itself. I just want to water the soil. So that's why I just try to send the water from below, because the pot has holes at the bottom. Yeah, so this is also a very low maintenance plant.
Well, that's a lot of plants, Yon, but I'm definitely not as fancy. But here is my Nage Nagi. I actually got this from IKEA. Very affordable and very easy to take care of. I bought it in February 25th. Started off as 14.95 centimeters. I measured again April 27th, was 16.25 centimeters. And today, at the day of the recording, the plant is 17.35 centimeters. So you can see it grows quite slowly, and it also changes color. So it starts off with a bit of a darker color, and it slowly changes to a lighter shade as it continues to grow. It's a type of bamboo, if you're interested in that kind of plants. And it's really easy to take care of. You just keep on watering it. But yeah, very easy to take care of.
Hi, my name is Olivia and I'm from Malaysia. My plant is the bok choy, which is a type of Chinese cabbage. In Chinese, its name directly translates to white cabbage. This vegetable is commonly cooked in Chinese restaurants, but nowadays it's also commonly found in people's gardens. It started off at March 20 at 1.7 cm, March 27th at 5 cm, April 10th, 8.8 cm, and today on the day of the recording, 30th of May, 19 cm.
So now we'll be moving on to our second portion of our project, which is basically giving information to you guys about some common houseplants that you can take care of. We'll be starting with cacti.
So for cacti, since they are desert plants, so that means they thrive in soil that's quick draining. So you want to make sure that the roots are dry enough so they don't start to rot. They like to be in places where there's a lot of bright light. So make sure that they get enough sunshine. Cacti can be grown indoors or outdoors, but you should look at the label of the plant to see where you can plant it before you decide if you want to grow it indoors or outdoors. But if you choose to put a cacti in a container, just as a rule of thumb, just make sure that the container is 1.5 times as wide as the stem. This is to ensure that there's enough space for the cacti to grow. So cacti will usually flower in spring, and it's usually in April, but depending on some species, it might be in May or even early June. So some tips of the cacti is that if a cactus doesn't flower in the set period of time, maybe it's because the cactus hasn't matured yet. So you have to you have to look at the species of cactus and like determine if it has if you have given it enough time to mature. Or maybe you just need to give it a little bit more water, sunlight, or fertilizer if it just doesn't flower. So a common reason why cacti plants die is because you water them too much or too little. So as a rule of thumb, just water the cacti when the top 3 inches of the soil are dry. Cacti, you should not prune your cacti, even if it's going to outgrow its pot. And if it does, you could just place it into another pot, but do not prune your cacti because it will leave a dry spot on the cacti and it will be pretty hard to hide. So moving on into air plants. So air plants, the interesting about them is that they don't need soil to grow because they don't have roots. Their leaves are pretty cool. They look like long tentacles and like kind of are spiky. And the leaf color determines their tolerance. So for example, the silver foliage ones would be more tolerant towards drier environments. So you don't have to water them as often. While the greener ones are more likely to dry out faster. They have flowers that are tubular or funnel shaped. Air plants should not be placed in places where they get direct sunlight. Just make sure that it's bright enough, but make sure that the sun's rays do not hit them directly. Make sure that your air plants are in a warm enough environment or else they will die. So some tips are, if you're unsure if you're giving your air plant enough sunlight or water, you could just see if it starts flowering. Like the flowering is a pretty good indicator that it's in its optimal zone. And if the flowers after they've grown and they start to dry off, you can cut off the flowers and like the flowers will keep growing and more flowers will bloom, and you can just cut off the dry ones. So a plant without roots and soil is pretty hard to water. So you can just submerge them in water for like 30 minutes every week, every once in a week, and put them on a paper towel, dry them off, and then you can put them back where you in the display. So you don't need to directly water them. You just need to soak them in water once a week. So if you want to make them look fresher in between you submerging the plants, you can mist them every other day in between the bath just to make sure that they look fresh and have a little bit of moisture on their leaves. So air plants can be displayed in like glass terrariums as it allows for optimal lighting, and it also allows people to see the plant. You can also put them with orchids because they thrive in similar environments, and it's just nice putting them together.
All right, the airplanes definitely look really cool to put on display in your homes. Next, we'll be presenting a peace lily. Unfortunately, Nadia was not able to join us today, but I'll definitely pass on some of the information that she has provided us. So first off, the basics. Make sure you use a well-draining all-purpose potting soil. Nadia suggests a peat-based potting soil. It's pretty common. that contains composite bark along with sand or perlite. You should also repot annually in the spring. And this is because eventually the peace lily may grow too large for its pot, at which point it can be divided. You can remove the plant from its pot, split it into smaller plants, being sure to leave several leaves per clump. The peace lily grows from rhizomes, so it can tolerate a bit of tough treatment during dividing. Also, aim to water about once per week when the soil is dry, but only when the soil is dry, because don't forget, the peace lily is sensitive to chemicals commonly found in tap water, so make sure to use filtered room temperature water if possible. The peace lily also prefers high humidity. Misting their leaves or placing their pot atop a moistened tray of gravel can help to increase humidity around the plant. Don't forget to fertilize every 6 weeks or so with a balanced houseplant fertilizer starting in late winter. Also, keep the plant in temperatures above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is around 16 degrees Celsius. Also, keep off direct afternoon sunlight, but in a bright, well-lit area. The main advantages are the peace lily is a beautiful flower, as you can see from the photo Nadia has provided us. It is also suitable for people who often overwater their plants, like Nadia, or really just like me. I do that a lot as well. So how to get the peace lily? So getting to know the flower, apologies. So most often, if no flowers are appearing, the plant is not getting enough light. Give it bright, indirect light, but make sure it's not indirect of the afternoon sunlight. Green flowers, weak-looking flowers, or a general lack of flowers can be caused by improper fertilizing. So for green flowers, cut back on fertilizing. And for weak-looking flowers or a lack of flowers, try switching to a fertilizer made specifically for flowering plants. This type of fertilizer will have a higher amount of phosphorus, which plants need for blooming. Warning, plant lilies are mildly poisonous. All parts of the peace lily plant contain calcium oxalate, which is a substance that may cause stomach and respiratory irritation if ingested in large amounts. So make sure you don't eat your peace lilies. They look good the way they are. And also make sure to keep peace lilies out of reach of small children and pets. Other common plants that contain calcium oxalate include philodendrons, daffodils, true lilies, and hyacinths. Wash your hands after handling this plant.
So I'll be moving on to Chinese money plant, which was researched by Nadia as well. So I'll just be passing on information. Basics. The Chinese money plants prefer a well-draining potting soil, and hence why a pot with drainage holes are necessary. These are quite common, so just keep an eye out for that. The large leaves tend to accumulate dust, so wipe it regularly and clean your plant. Treat it monthly with an all-purpose plant fertilizer during spring and summer growing seasons. All-purpose plant fertilizers are very useful for basically all plants. Even I use that for my mint plant and my curry plant that I presented earlier. Unless some flowers or plants specify what fertilizers they need, all-purpose organic plant fertilizers are the way to go. It can be this plant can be kept outside when temperatures warm, but keep it out of direct sunlight, so moderate sunlight. So common symptoms that your plant is dying. If the leaves are turning brown and crispy at edges, you're probably underwatering it, and there's probably low humidity or too much direct sunlight. So please take care of it. If the stems are turning soft and yellowing, or if the stems are turning black, or if the plant is falling apart, this probably indicates that you're probably overwatering, which will then result in your roots rotting or a root disease. And your plant will fall apart, turn soft and mushy, and die. If there are white spots on the pores of the leaves, this is the minerals that are being secreted out of the leaf. This will often happen if you use tap water to water your plant. So once again, please use filtered room temperature water. If the leaves are curved, This usually means that there's insufficient light. Make sure that your plant is getting very bright indirect sunlight. But once again, remember that it needs to be moderate. So be very careful with how much sunlight you're providing them with. If the leaves are yellowing at the base of the plant, this which is also commonly followed by leaf drop. This is a natural leaf shedding, but if it happens very rapidly, make sure that your plant is getting enough bright light, and also please fertilize your plant. And if the leaves are curling or drooping, this usually indicates underwatering as well. What is the advantage of growing this plant? It is easy to propagate. If healthy, the plant will eventually send plantlets through the soil, which you can separate from the mother plant. This means that you can have more plants. Follow the stem about an inch under the soil and use a clean, sharp knife to cut the baby plant free. Plant in a new pot and keep soil moist until the plant is well anchored and begin to produce leaves. New plantlets also grow straight from the stem, so you can cut these, place in water until roots develop in a week or two, and follow the same directions as above.
Hey everyone, I'm Shari from Malaysia. So we'll be moving on to one of the most common houseplants, that is Calatheas. Calatheas originate from South America, or they can also be found anywhere near the equator. So as for basic needs for the Calathea, for water requirements, Calatheas requires you to water them at least once every 1 to 2 weeks. There isn't a fixed variable for this. There isn't a fixed intervals for each waterings, because you have to look for the moisture in their soil. If they tend to be drier, you need to water them more. If they tend to be moisture, you don't need to water them much. And also they prefer distilled water or purified water, or maybe filtered water. Your drinking water can also be used. This is because minerals and chlorines and ions in the tap water could be accumulating within the soil that will make the situation cause the water inside the plant to move out of the plant. And Calatheas actually thrives in a humid environment. This is because their origin that is in jungles and tropical countries. So they love humid environments. If you happen to live in a dry environment, you can try by misting them regularly, or you can try by placing them in your kitchens or bathrooms. You can also try putting an air humidifier near them. As for sunlight requirements, as they tend to grow on the bed of jungles, bases of trees, they don't usually get much direct sunlight, although they love bright to medium sunlight. So please remember, do not put your Calatheas with direct sunlight, because they can actually burn when exposed to excessive sunlight. So you should never let them out in the sun. As for temperature, they love warm, and that should be at least about 18 Celsius to 27 Celsius. And please bear in mind, they hate the cold so much that they will just die off if it's cold. And you can also try to look for first signs and for heat damage, that is curling of the leaves. Like many other houseplants, benefits of Calatheas are also making your air around you purifier. Besides their very eye-catching and attractive appearance, they will purify your air. So with Calatheas, you can expect an indoor environment that is free from harmful Calatheas. Moving on with tips. Most of the time, people don't know if they are overwatering or underwatering their plants. So for this, you can always seek for early symptoms such as wilting and curling leaves for underwatering symptoms, and also yellow leaves for overwatering. And to prevent this, you can always look at their soil moisture. And to look at the soil moisture is to use the bamboo stick hack. This is a very simple hack. You just take a bamboo skewer or a bamboo stick, and you just poke in the soil and take a look at the bamboo stick. If there are many soil particles, that means your soil is moist enough. If it is on the other hand, which means it have less soil particles. That means your soil is dry, so you should water them. And Calatheas do not require frequent pruning because they are actually slow growing plants. So unless if you have many dead leaves or yellow leaves, then you might need to cut them off. And Calatheas do not usually attract pests, so you do not have to worry about pests. But you can always take a step ahead. As for cases that make water not flowing into the soil, you can try aerating the soil more by poking around the soil, and also changing the soils. Is because most of the time soils that do not absorb water are old, so you can try changing them. And Calatheas do not need fertilizer, but you can try fertilizing them too. However, do not over fertilize them because they will again attract the water outside of the plant, so do not over fertilize them. And my favorite thing is that they are pet friendly. They are toxic free, and not many houseplants are actually toxic free. So you can, if you have pets at home, you can have this plant. However, don't put your plant near them because your pet might be destroying your plant. As for quick facts, the Calatheas are actually known as the prayer plant. This is because they have frequent leaves movements. At night, the leaves will actually fold upward, making a praying hands appearance and revealing their bottom violet appearance. And in the morning, they will start to reveal itself and open up. So this motion is actually called nyctinasty, and this is crucial for the plant to follow the sun to optimize sunlight absorption. And people actually says that Calathea symbolizes a new beginning as it frequently turns over its new leaves. So now you can have a look at the photos. Yeah, as you can see, we have many varieties of Calatheas. So Calatheas are actually for everyone. If you prefer this and that, you can try to have Calatheas because we have many varieties of it.
So that is the end of our presentation. I hope that you all learned something because I definitely did. This project actually made me turn back to gardening. Since I came to Singapore, I haven't gardened or even go near plants in my house at all because I was like, I'm in a city, I can't do this. There's not enough space. Because in Myanmar, I had a garden at home, but now there's no time for excuses. So because I can actually grow my plants right on my window and my balcony. So yeah, I hope that this was a learning experience for you. Thank you.